wrapped up. It's in the books. Quite a newsworthy show, I think, from Perth. Once very, very enjoyable. And we're going to be talking about it right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
Once again, welcome back, guys, to the channel. We are here for the instant reaction review, as I said. And again, quite a fun and newsworthy event, I thought. I want to know what you thought of the show, though. Of course, I'm going to dive into my thoughts a little bit deeper than just that. But I do want to know what you thought of the show itself, the kind of twists and turns and results, of course, and where you might see it going forward. So get your comments coming in. And I can see someone coming in already. Good to have you guys with us. Aiden, hello to you, buddy. Hope you are doing well and I hope you enjoyed Crown Jewel. Casper's in here once again as well. Says the only thing I missed was Stephanie Vaquer win over Tiffany Stratton match. But I know what happened. I do know the winner of the match. Doze off for 15 minutes, but Stephanie Vaquer wins. Yeah, you doze off in a pretty fun match, I got to say. But that's kind of it for, you know, the whole night, really. The whole event was quite enjoyable. I say night. Again, it's still the afternoon here in the UK, but a very, very enjoyable show, even if it was weird to watch it at this sort of time. Casper said, Aiden says, Casper, that was a great match. And but the best match was Cena versus AJ. It's a very, very different type of match, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that because it was a fun one. But I know there are kind of dueling opinions at the moment, as some people thinking it was a little bit over the top. But I actually really enjoyed it. Little spoiler alert for how I felt about this one. All right, so let's start from the very beginning. Right, let's go match by match. Let's talk about all the big moments that took place at Crown Jewel. And again, keep your comments coming, guys. I want to know what you thought of the show overall. It started up with a cool opening package as we saw the titles being brought there and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed that sort of stuff they've been showing, kind of cheesily amping up the Crown Jewel Championships. Cena versus AJ, the moves were crazy, says Casper. Again, we will get to that in a little bit. But we'll start with, well, actually a note on John Cena. There was a ridiculous amount of Cena's shirts. Now, this is always the case, right? Even back in the day, you always wore the bright colour shirts so you can tell when there's a lot of Cena shirts. But this was a lot. And I've noticed that as we've gone along this farewell tour. Of course, even as a heel, they were selling that merch and it was well represented in the audiences. But this felt huge. Like, I don't know, 50%, but like a lot of the people were wearing John Cena merch. So it was quite impressive. Again, as Lucas mentioned on last night's weekend kickoff show, it's his last international date, you know, outside of the US. So, yeah, it was a special occasion for John Cena. But again, we will get to that. First of all, though, we'll get to the one that Aiden's mentioned here. Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed. Aiden says it was amazing. I got to say, Aiden, I actually really, really enjoyed it myself as well. That's how we opened the show. And it was expected, really. It was kind of what I was assuming when we were on the build-up show earlier on. Again, appreciate you all as ever for joining us on the build-up. I hope it got you hyped and in the mood for the show. And thanks for coming back for the instant reaction review. But yeah, we did start out, as we said, Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed. And it started really as they meant to go on. Just fun. Like, I had fun watching this match. And Roman had fun being in it seems, because it's maybe not at the end. We'll get to that. He starts just throwing around prime bottles and things like that. We were talking earlier on in the build-up show about how does this become an Australian street fight. You know, obviously, no matter where it is, or if it's a good old-fashioned Donnybrook or no DQ or Falls Count Anywhere or a hardcore match, Extreme Rules, whatever, it's pretty much the same match for the most part. But when you have these little kind of names like Australian, you think at least the weapons are going to be themed. And we talked earlier on the build-up show about what that could be. And I remember there was a comment saying a cricket bat. And yes, we did get a cricket bat. Roman Reigns lines up Bronson Reed and boom, straight into the stomach. That was quite funny. And also like throwing around rugby balls. So yeah, he threw one at Heyman, then he threw one at Reed, very close, and didn't quite hit Reed. I thought that was a bit, you know, telling for a man who, you know, was forming part of an NFL team. But hey, Who am I to judge? He also played along with the crowd. He said, look, Perth, if you want tables, acknowledge me. They did acknowledge him. He started bringing out the tables. But there was a lot of back and forth in this early going. It was a very energetic way to start the show. I really, really enjoyed this match overall. Some of the big moments again, Reed sneaking out of the ring when Roman Reigns does his kind of taunt, getting ready for the Superman punch. Doesn't quite happen. So he goes on the outside and follows him, does the taunt again, which I thought was quite funny. He starts running around the ring, and then who do you get? But Bron Breakker attacking Roman Reigns with a spear himself. Then there's a lot of yeeting from the fans, and we'll get to that in a moment because they do kind of conjure up something here. There's a shield bomb, though, between the two Brons as they put Roman Reigns through the announce table. Jey's music does hit for both Usos, which I think is a little bit, I'd prefer if it was the Day One-ish song, but I understand why they use the Jey Uso song much more these days. It was a nice note. I can't remember if I even mentioned it last time around at WrestlePalooza where they did use their old theme and then moved into Jey's theme. But anyway, going on tangent there. They came out, they tried to even things up, but Breakker got basically back in control. He spears Jimmy through the barrier. There's a Superman punch to Reed on the turnbuckle, which I thought was pretty cool as Reed was kind of on the top of it. Jey, though, accidentally spears Roman Reigns through the table. And you can tell straight away this is going in a awkward direction for the Bloodline members. We'd call them that because they're not really acknowledging that as their name at the moment, but they kind of still are the Bloodline, I guess, in some ways. In the end, it ends up being a victory for Big Bronson Reed with a tsunami off the top rope and a really, really positive start to the show again. Very, very fun, high kind of energy and action, and just an enjoyable opener overall and the right decision. You know, I said on the build-up, I said it on the weekend kickoff show that I felt like Big Bronson Reed needed to win this match and win the feud. And I think the feud could potentially be over here. And I think it's probably the right decision for, as I say, Bronson Reed to come out on top. Now, then we get some interesting things after the match. They talk on commentary about how this is the first time, or one of the few times, the second time in recent years that he's been pinned in a one-on-one match, which just really emphasizes how little Reigns is in one-on-one matches these days. But yeah, a big kind of accolade for Bronson Reed to have. And then Roman's moaning in the ring at the Usos and does this great character work that he's been doing for a while now, since the kind of Thunderdome era where they were doing things up close and just hearing him say stuff without the mic. I did the same here, awkwardly. They let slip a little naughty word. He said, the whole world thinks I can't do shit on my own. And then he says, look, I love you. I don't want to see you for Christmas. Which was really kind of like, I guess realistic is the kind of word I want to go for. You know, like these are cousins and they're annoyed at each other. Like, look, I love you and we will celebrate. But right now, stay away from me because you've annoyed me and I need my space. I really, really like that. Someone who didn't like it, though, Jey Uso. He took offense to that and was really frustrated. Jimmy was a bit like, oh, this is messy, but we can sort it out. But Jey seemed to be really annoyed by this. And they're really leaning into Jey turning heel, which is a surprise to me. You know, I've mentioned it a few times lately that I get it. It would be a big shock and a big twist. And kind of meaningful because he's been so over. But that's it. He's been so over. They don't tend to do this. You know, it took them 20 years, basically, to turn Cena heel again. And Jey Uso is their kind of moneymaker. They're, you know, young fans kind of love him, you know, and they do the yeeting and all that kind of stuff. They sell the T-shirts. So it's really surprising that they do seem to be going in that direction, that Jey's going to turn heel. And it seems to be on a jealousy front, not in the kind of sense of like, I want what you've got, but like, I'm just sick of him being, you know, the one to call the shots. You know, even here, you know, Jey Uso's finally become main event Jey Uso properly. You know, he's been in main events, he's been world champion, and he still has to kind of cater to Roman as the leader. So I thought it's quite an interesting touch here, but I'm just not sure how I feel about turning Jey Uso heel. Let me know what you thought of this opening match. Again, I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. I thought it was a great way to kick off things in Perth for Crown Jewel. Speaking of, let me know what you think. Let's get to some of these comments as we make our way into the next match. Again, Aiden said, Roman versus Bronson was amazing. Madman says AJ versus Cena is match of the year, in my opinion. I know, Madman, you were very much looking forward to that match. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Kieran said, what happened in the match? Just woke up. Kieran, I appreciate you tuning in, buddy, but hey, maybe go watch the show and don't get spoilers from us. Come back and watch the instant reaction review on demand, mate. I don't want to ruin the show for you, but hey, I can't help but talk about it, right? You're asking. A good pay-per-view, says Madman as well. And as Aiden says, Kieran, you missed an amazing pay-per-view. I've got to be honest. I'll get to kind of rankings and stuff like that later on, but I really, really did enjoy this show. I thought it was a very fun one. Madman says about using the cricket bat. Yeah, we were talking about Australia's love for cricket earlier on, weren't we? And how they might use a cricket bat. Aiden says, Kieran says even, have I, Aiden, in reference to missing a very, very good show. Casper says, I think you or someone mentioned Bronson Reed won this over Roman Reigns. Yeah, I think, Roman won the first two. I think it was a good idea for Bronson to get the victory here, so I'm glad to see it. Madman says, Kieran Lewis is arguably match of the year in AJ versus Cena. Now, I'm looking forward to talking about this one because it's a very different style for when people talk about match of the year candidates, but still a very, very entertaining one. At least I'm waiting for darts at 8, says Kieran. There you go. It all swings and roundabouts. It all works out. Casper says, Bronson Reed versus Roman Reigns was a fun match again to open the show. And Kieran also says, I missed all the fun. Hey, mate, you're here for this part of the fun at least. Don't worry, buddy. Hope you can catch up with Crown Jewel soon. Always good to see you in the comments, though. By the way, interesting fact, WWE channel is only uploading moments while ESPN is uploading total highlights, says Madman. Yeah, a little bit different, of course, now that they've got this relationship with ESPN. Of course, rights and stuff like that will change. Then it depends where you are in the world as well and what you can see. Something brewing between Jey spearing Roman Reigns. Yeah, of course it was an accident, but Roman's got a point in being annoyed about them coming out. But they've got a point in being like, mate, we're trying to level things up and help you. Aiden says, Jey turns on Jimmy and Roman. It does look like it's coming. And Madman says, in reference to this opening match, a good opener and Bronson won, which is good. But freaking lockdown Indian kids are uploading comments on what YouTube shorts that they disrespect to Roman, and Roman should leave WWE for this. I'm ashamed. What do you mean lockdown? I don't know what that means, but no, don't be ashamed. Just because people from the same country you're in have a strong opinion one way or the other doesn't mean you have to be ashamed of them. It's silly to say that he's disrespected he should be leaving WWE. I get what you mean there. That's some people just, anyway. Works out quite well for the division at Crown Jewel, says Casper. Yeah, we'll get to the main event in a bit, but it certainly opens up with a big, big victory for Bronson Reed. Match was 8 out of 10, says Aiden. I second that, as in match of the year. I guess talking again about AJ Styles versus John Cena, which, again, don't worry, guys, we will get there. But thank you so much, guys, for your comments, especially around the opening match there. Again, we'll touch on a few others there. We will get to those very, very soon. But just to kind of round up on that opener, very, very enjoyable opening match. And I'm glad they went first because it was just a lot of fun. Now, next up, we had the Women's Crown Jewel Championship on the line. Of course, WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton facing off against Women's World Champion in Stephanie Vaquer. Now, I got to say, I was pleasantly surprised at the quality of this match. And this isn't me saying I don't think either of them are good. I think Stephanie is amazing. I think she's leaped over Tiffany as far as the way she's perceived to fans and presentation. But I think Tiffany's big issue, as we said on the build-up show, and as we also said on last night's stream, the weekend kickoff, that Tiffany needs to turn heel. I thought it was going to happen here. It didn't happen, but what we did get is a very, very enjoyable match. Again, let me know what you thought of this one. I don't know if you see my message, says Aiden. Where's your message? Was it on Twitter or something like that? I haven't seen it. If so, I'll try and check it in a little bit. Very happy Stephanie won. She needed the win more, says Madman. And this match was second best match. Yeah, I agree, Aiden. It was a very, very good match indeed. Again, let's get to some of the highlights from the match itself. I see Aiden's talking about messages here. Let's have a look. Oh, okay, I found it now. Here we go. What did you say? I think I lost my voice from this match. And this match has turned into a tribute. Oh, okay, so it was the AJ one. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun. Thanks for the message, Aiden. Yeah, hey, follow us at RM Pro Wrestling on social media if you don't already, like Aiden does. Good chance for me to plug that, Aiden, so appreciate that. Yeah, it was about the Cena match. Gotcha. Right, let's get back to the women's match, as you say there, quite rightly. Second match of the night for you. I think it's going to be up there for many as well. It was a very, very enjoyable match. But again, we're talking about the Women's Crown Jewel Championship match. It was won eventually by Stephanie Vaquer, but it was a lot of storytelling in this match as well. They had far better chemistry than I could have expected. I really, really enjoyed what these guys did together, and I think it really highlights Tiffany's kind of, well, the need to focus on Tiffany's strengths, essentially. When she's been in the ring with certain wrestlers, she has looked out of touch a little bit, out of step, and then other wrestlers like this, she's looked absolutely fine. She's looked great. Let's talk about some of the big moments in the match, though. There was a lovely, again, credit where it's due from Tiffany, a lovely cartwheel into an Alabama slam by Tiffany. It was such a strange setup for a move, but really, really enjoyable. We had a dragon screw that looked particularly nasty from, of course, the corner by Stephanie Vaquer. But this is where I don't want to be using words like botch or anything like that. It wasn't that major at all. Don't get me wrong, but maybe inexperience or just being caught up in a moment steps in, because it did make me laugh quite a bit that Tiffany quickly, instinctively went to sell the knee, but grabbed the wrong knee. The one that has been held. I guess it would have hurt as well on the other knee, but like the emphasis was on the knee that she didn't grab at first, that she moved over, which was quite funny. And again, I'm not trying to point out flaws in Tiffany here, just for fun. I think she's an incredible talent, and it reminded me as well, again, we mentioned it on the weekend kickoff, that Elimination Chamber in Australia is where I think she was really kind of made into that kind of main roster talent, because the fans were really behind her in Australia. They gave her much love again here in Australia for Crown Jewel. And I think she performed very, very well. A nice suplex into the knees we saw. There was a swanton into the knees onto the back of the neck of Tiffany as well. So very, very well done for them to take that safely. A lot of moves going on to knees on either side here. There was a lot of knees to the face and stuff like that. So a very hard-hitting match when it comes to knees, at least, and shins. The Devil's Kiss finally got applied. She tried to do it and obviously set up. As often happens, the fans go crazy. Doesn't happen. They make them wait, and they bring her back up to a crescendo when they finally do hear it. The prettiest moonsault ever was missed, and then straight after that, pretty much, we had a corkscrew from the top rope from Stephanie Vaquer, and she picks up the victory, and a well-deserved victory at that. I mean, I think she really was the right person to give the belt and ring too. I really like how the ring boxes have little lights inside, by the way, and I also liked how she could do the pose that she does with the the one finger for La Primera with the ring on it as well. I was very surprised though that Tiffany Stratton didn't come in here and turn heel. This would have been a great opportunity to turn her heel, but not have it around her own title. She's still champion. Like, that is the kind of character, when she is a heel, that would do that kind of thing, So it makes me think maybe they've got other plans for that, or they're just still not going to turn the heel anytime soon, which I think is a shame. I think that's what's missing in this at the moment for Tiffany, excuse me. And again, I think she's been paired up with kind of people that has not really helped, make her shine, Like, realistically, her and Jade Cargill are both in the position to become made as top stars. And you could argue, and I've said this before on the channel, sometimes your first world championship, in my opinion, isn't because you are world championship caliber, but it's because they are making you world championship caliber. And I think that's been the case for Tiffany. I think she's grown, but you go back to her match at WrestleMania with Charlotte, she looked like she was knackered at the end of that. She looked kind of like she'd been run rings around, essentially. She got through it, but for me, it kind of highlighted some of the kind of the things. And they can say as much as they want on commentary about, oh, she's only been in it for a few years, isn't it amazing? Yeah, it is amazing, but it highlights that she's not the best in the world, which the world champion or the WWE champion should be, right? So again, this isn't a thing on her, because it's incredible. The level she's at is incredible. But I think today, this afternoon, whatever you want to call it, showed just how much better Stephanie Vaquer is, because she's been around for so much longer. Yeah, she's been in the WWE system a lot less. And that's another story in itself of like, oh, she hasn't been here long, and look at her climb to the top. But this is one that kind of more suits the talent level or skill level that she's got at the moment, whereas Tiffany is still kind of a little bit further behind. Not saying she doesn't deserve to be champion, not saying she can't improve, not saying that she's not amazing at the moment. I think she's been fantastic. You go back a few months and I was very happy that she'd been given this position, but I do think certain feuds, certain matches have highlighted that there's still room for improvement, and that's fine. There's room for improvement for everybody on the roster to an extent, right? But to me, I just felt like this was a great example of using Tiffany in a good spot against a wrestler that is going to kind of protect her, and they work well together. They can gel, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know, Stephanie, I don't know the inner workings of the match, but if Stephanie kind of led the match essentially and was the safe pair of hands in some ways, which sounds bizarre to say, but you know, because she's not exactly a 15, 20-year-old, you know, veteran herself, but certainly has a lot of outside experience that Tiffany doesn't have, that she can bring to the table here and kind of bring them to a similar level. Whereas when you face off against someone like Jade Cargill, and again, even this, not a slight on Jade Cargill, I think she's amazing. I think she is world championship material to that first degree at least, and then becoming, you know, a bona fide world champion and main eventer. I think Jade's great, but putting Jade and Tiffany together, I think, was a risky move, and it didn't pay off. I mean, nothing came of it anyway. Jade didn't become champion, so where are we at with it now? So I really would have liked to have seen, if that feud was going to come back, Tiffany turn going into that, because I think also them both being baby faces didn't really help that either. But what are your thoughts on this match and the presentation of both Stephanie and Tiffany? I think it was the right decision, but there's also the risk that you overly push Stephanie as well. You know, she's just won that title and got in this position to be in this match, and then she's won this. She looks, you know, massive, you know, rocket strapped to her essentially. So it could be risky in itself. Ended by a spiral tap. Says Madman. What else do we have? Casper says this doesn't get Tiffany Stratton losing this match. Madman Vaquer is the master, says Aiden as well. Madman also says, yes, Tiffany is inconsistent in the ring, but in this match she surprised me. A good wrestler still, doesn't know how to cut a promo though, says sorry, I'm just disappointed in Tiffany. I think with Tiffany, the problem is her delivery and her cadence. It suits her being a heel, and sometimes she gets a little lost out there. I mean, we go back to the Charlotte Flair feud as well. I mean, felt like there were essays being written at the time about, you know, the kind of awkward back and forth they had on the mic. So, yeah. Casper says it doesn't hurt Tiffany losing this match. I think you're right. I think Tiffany is still in a good position here. And Madman agrees with it. Yes, it was a beautiful spiral tap. I mean, they made a point of not calling it out on commentary and saying that it needs a name itself. So we'll see if she does end up coming up with a name for it. Aiden says Casper, I think it is better that she loses. Talking about Tiffany here. Love them both, says Casper. Stephanie versus Tiffany Stratton. And the Devil's Kiss was amazing, but totally didn't do a Booker T. Yeah. I wish Booker T came there just to do that. Yeah. Aiden says Tiffany loses the belt soon and then will turn. Interesting call. Maybe that is how they go about it, Aiden. Maybe she's so angry about that, but I think this was an opportunity to do it here. You know, be like, shouldn't need to lose the belt, but be angry about not winning something that actually kind of doesn't matter. You know, the Crown Jewel Championship is still kind of in its infancy, and it's not something that's defended all year or anything like that. It's a one-off. Tiffany first loss this year. Oh yeah, good point, Casper. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, she was undefeated up until this point. So, which I think is kind of refreshing in itself. You know, Madman says, imagine having a bad match with the Charlotte Flair. That's like having a bad match with AJ Styles. Hey, to be honest, Shinsuke Nakamura had a pretty bad match with AJ Styles, and they're both amazing as well. So it can happen. Don't get me wrong. That WrestleMania match years ago, maybe if I watch that back, I won't be so harsh on it. But, you know, I was really hyped about that match, and it just did not deliver. Nowhere near the Wrestle Kingdom match they had a few years before anyway. Aiden's got to pop out because you're off to work. Aiden, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, hope you enjoy Crown Jewel. Always a pleasure to see you dropping by and dropping comments and engaging in the chat. So appreciate that, as I'm sure others in the chat do as well. Thank you very much, buddy. And I hope you have a good day at work. And when you make your way back, tune back in and watch the rest of this on demand, buddy, to see what we thought of the rest of the show. But again, thank you for tuning in. Again, a really, really fun match. It sounds like I'm kind of down on Tiffany here. I'm not. It's the opposite. I was very, very impressed with Tiffany's performance in this match, and I think it's a great example of playing to someone's strength. So, yeah, congratulations to both of them. And congratulations, of course, to Stephanie Vaquer for becoming second ever Crown Jewel champion. Next up, backstage, we saw a segment where Bronson Reed was being congratulated by his running buddy in Bron Breakker, saying again how we mentioned earlier on, it was only the second person to beat Roman Reigns one-on-one, so they're pretty happy about that. Paul Heyman comes in to congratulate as well, and then they start saying, well, later on, Heyman's like, look, don't go out there. If Seth even gets to the top rope and starts waving, come and help me, don't go out there, which was really interesting, right? I thought something major was going to happen in the main event like that, but we'll get to that later on because Seth pretty much did it on his own, even if he had a little help from his Rolex. But we'll get to that later on. But interesting way to set up the main event here. And let's move on to the next match itself, which was one that I know many were looking forward to. And many, by the looks of the chat, are considering this as match of the year candidate already. John Cena and AJ Styles. And let me just say, I love this match. I thought, for the nostalgia merchant in me, this was fantastic. Look, if you take it as a normal match, spamming finishes is not the best way to go, right? And there's been a bit of that even in Cena's past here. They've been kind of highlighting previous feuds and wrestlers, and it was that thing that come out a while ago that Cena was going to pay homage to people who couldn't wrestle by using their movesets, essentially. And he did it with AJ Styles a little while back. It looked like we weren't going to get the AJ match, but my goodness, am I glad we did. It was a lot of fun. Now, it wasn't the same sort of match as what we got from them a few years back because they are older and they are working basically slightly different styles now as well. But they took it all the way back to the old school at the very beginning when AJ Styles made his way out to the ring in his old school gear, man. It was such a cool throwback seeing AJ in the blue and white half and half gear. The old logos and stuff like that. The hood. I mean, he still wears a hood these days, but the old classic over-the-top baggy hood. Man, it was so cool to see. Lovely intro as well for AJ Styles, thanks to John Cena, at least in character. Maybe Cena wrote in real life, I don't know. But they highlighted AJ's past. They gave him, a lot of props, the face that runs the place. Basically, I think they said something along the lines of being like not the original, but like the best or whatever leader of the Bullet Club. When AJ's face was like pleasantly surprised that they mentioned that, I guess, on WWE programming in that form as well. And just a real kind of lovely moment of respect between the two of them. So really, really nice to see from the get-go with this one here. Let's get to some of the comments here before we get to some of my thoughts on it. Casper says, then onto this crazy moves, ridiculous, crazy match. Every WWE move in the book for John Cena versus AJ Styles. Crazy indeed. Match of the year says, Madman, very, very happy with this one, and says, I lost it when the crowd started chanting 619. He always did it. Well, why did AJ clothesline him? I know we were talking, weren't we, earlier on about what if Cena hits the 619? They got so close to actually doing it. It didn't actually happen. In the end, he didn't, as you say. The shooting star press. Yeah, I don't think we were going to get that from John Cena. AJ and his TNA merch and Cena writing a banging introduction from him was such a respectful moment. Tears came to my eye before the match even started. Yeah, lovely moment there, as you say, Madman. Really, really enjoyable match, but a great way to even start the match as well. Casper says AJ versus John Cena was a fun match. I thought Big Match John picks up the win here as well, as he did. So let's get to some of the highlights from the match. As I say, it was very, very back and forth from the start. The first tribute that I remember seeing, because there were so many of them, I'm going to try and rattle through them here, but you had a skull-crushing finale, which was a nice little note from John Cena here. Loads of submissions back and forth, including what looked like an accolade or maybe just a normal camel clutch, but I'd like to think it was an accolade. Then the Walls of Jericho, which I thought was a very interesting point, because Michael Cole made a point to say, this isn't a Boston Crab, and then Wade Barrett said, break the walls down. It was like they didn't want to say Jericho's name, and then they maybe got the okay, because then I think Michael Cole just straight up said the Walls of Jericho after that anyway, after alluding to it. So that was cool. Huge reaction, by the way, from the fans to the Walls of Jericho. And I think it just shows that sometimes you need a different environment, because Jericho is not flavor of the month by any stretch of the imagination when it comes to wrestling fans. And it's crazy because this is a man that reinvents himself famously, and a few years ago everybody was loving and singing along to Judas. I think shake up the environment, just like with Cody leaving AEW. I think him coming over to WWE, there'll be a different reception altogether, and I do think that's probably going to happen at some point. But let's bring it back to the match itself. They start doing their own moves a little bit. There's a calf crusher from AJ after trying to lock it in a few times. STF in there as well. Then going back to the tributes, and what a tribute it was. A huge ovation and roar for Cena as he set up for the Sister Abigail, hits it, and then beautifully the Fireflies come out. The fans in Perth get their phones ready, and they start singing, impromptu, straight into He's Got the Whole World in His Hand. And it was a very, very emotionally touching tribute. You could see Cena looking up to the sky and saying a few words as well in reference to Bray Wyatt. An interesting point on commentary where I think was the right way to do it as well. They touched on Cena's kind of respect for Bray. And Michael Cole said that was basically a story for another time to come I think it was about Bray's early days in the WWE. So I'd love to hear that. But yeah, of course, famous feuds between those two as well. So real nice touch. Then talking about nice touch, man, it wasn't just WWE legends getting their kind of finishes represented here, but also TNA royalty as well, which I really appreciate. They mentioned again in the opening, total non-stop action. Yes, it's easier now that the companies are working together. This sort of stuff becomes more doable, but there are still guys who aren't, they've been in AEW, for example, being referenced here as well, such as Frankie Kazarian and the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels. We saw Angel Wings, and we also saw Kazarian's Fade to Black in this by AJ Styles as well. Going back to some of the WWE references, though, loads of Randy Orton references here from John Cena. He sets him up on the middle rope, does the DDT. You get a vintage from Michael Cole, who's vintage Cena, ironically, rather than vintage Orton. He then sets up, he does all the mannerisms and everything. It was really fun. Hits the RKO, then he goes to hit the punt. And I thought there's no way he's doing it because they're teasing that Orton's trying to do it and he doesn't. He hasn't really brought it back, all that kind of stuff. He nearly did for Kevin Owens, of course. So yeah, of course, Cena doesn't hit it. What do we get then? AJ Styles hits the AA. Gets a 2 count from it. Then he goes for the You Can't See Me, but then a hand up to the throat as the chokeslam is hit. Then a reference, of course, to The Undertaker by John Cena. This is where they start chanting for the 619. The fans are going mad for it, and then it is stopped. Big boos, and then you get the springboard 450. So I'm sure fans were happy to see that, at least from AJ. He then hits the Sweet Chin Music, which was an interesting one because he would never have worked with Shawn Michaels. And then also, again, we got that Fade to Black. Phenomenal forearm, and then eventually it ends with a roll through where Cena usually catches him, rolls through, puts him on the shoulders. No. He turns it into a tombstone, a very kind of close and impactful tombstone. He pretty much jumped for it. Tombstone pile driver, picks him up, hits the AA, and gets the 1, 2, 3. What a incredible match. So much fun. Again, I've seen some people say like the spamming the finishes is too much, but this is the match where it was fine. Take the context away from the match. This is ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. It still was ridiculous, even though I enjoyed it. But it was a tribute to so many people. And again, especially the TNA stuff for me, to be able to show tribute to people like Kazarian and Daniels, I thought was phenomenal, to use a pun. I was wondering if we'd see a Muscle Buster or something like that, or some sort of Samoa Joe tribute. Didn't notice one in there, especially not a Muscle Buster by any stretch. But still, really cool to see the amount of people that they referenced in this one, because it wasn't just a greatest hits thing for John Cena in his past. It was also the same for AJ Styles' past as well. And I thought that was really, really cool to kind of put those TNA guys and AJ Styles and TNA on that level, that pedestal. I thought was really cool. And yes, it's in their interest at the moment with kind of working with TNA, and who knows what else is going on with that relationship. But still, a great kind of, I guess, a touch of class, really, to kind of emphasize TNA's importance here and AJ's importance in that. Let's get to some of these comments here. What do we have? Let's have a look. Cena doing the Walls of Jericho was awesome, says Madman, considering that both Cena and Jericho are my top 2 favorite of all time. That's been a nice touch for you then, Madman. That Bray Wyatt moment and the Fireflies coming out was perfect. Yeah, 100%. A really emotional moment in that as well. Even though it was fan service match, it was the best fan service match they could have given, LOL. No, I agree with you, man. I think it was... For what it was, that kind of match, they weren't going to have the same sort of match they had a few years back. So this is how they delivered, and this is a match that fans are going to remember and appreciate coming away from this as well. As Casper says, you had a Walls of Jericho, you had a chokeslam, you had a Tombstone Pile Driver. Thoughts on Jericho returning at the 26th Royal Rumble? Maybe. I don't know where his contract's at the moment. There were rumors about it ending and how, Tony Khan said, you want to have Jericho around, basically, but will he have Jericho around? We'll have to wait and see. Jericho did come back, remember, not when he was in AEW, but when he had been out of WWE at the Royal Rumble once after previously, like just before maybe being at Wrestle Kingdom, because of course that's early January. Was it the same year? I remember it was in and around the Wrestle Kingdom stuff. So yeah, maybe we'll get something like that again. We got Samoa Joe and Angel. What was the Samoa Joe reference? Angel Wings, yeah, incredible. What else do we have? AJ kicking out of all the finishes, but then after the tombstone, Cena through the tombstone, it was way too much of a protective move. Yeah, true. That's the thing about hitting all the finishes, right? You can argue both sides. You can say, well, it just devalues their finisher. And there's a massive thing in wrestling where you don't do something like that. You don't do someone else's move, really, unless you kind of get permission or it's clearly an homage. This was a match of homages, right? And I think it kind of devalues the finisher in some ways. But you could also argue, no, but that's why anyone could do anyone's move, but it's the master of that move that kind of gets the job done, right? So you can go both ways with it. But this is a special occasion anyway, so it doesn't really matter in my opinion. John hit the RKO and AJ Styles hit the Sweet Chin Music. Sweet Chin Music needed. HBK doesn't get enough flowers. I think generally speaking he does, but these days he's kind of, because he's working in the background at WWE, he's not referenced all the time in that sense. He's more referenced in kind of, Sean's a great, and he's looking after NXT, right? So I kind of get where you're coming from there. But generally speaking, I think people appreciate Shawn Michaels, but he's not always referenced these days. You know, it is other people. Madman would give this match a 5-star ranking. We got a Samoa Joe in the Coquina Clutch. Of course we did. Good point. Very nice. Picked up on there. Jericho's 56 now, says Casper. But you can at least do a Rumble return, says Madman. And Casper says, is he a bit too old to come back? As Madman says, maybe not for at least a Royal Rumble and a quick payday here and there. I think it would be something that is definitely doable. But yeah, man, what a match. I mean, I'm glad you guys agreed. I was really, really kind of entertained, essentially, the whole time. And that's what you want from wrestling, right? And again, I'm in two minds. Part of me wants to go, this is what wrestling's all about. And part of me is like, no, it's not. Like, this is not your typical wrestling match. But the story, you know, you put the story in the history. If you know these characters and you're willing to let go of kind of, you know, suspend your disbelief as you should with wrestling anyway. This is, the way it made me feel is what wrestling's all about. I kind of put it that way at least. But yeah, really, really fun match. And yeah, again, I'm glad you guys agree. If you did agree, let me know that as well. I do want to hear your thoughts, guys, whether you're commenting here or you're lurking in the background. Come on, let us know what you thought of Crown Jewel overall and of these matches as we make our way through what, again, was just a really, really fun card. Let's move into the next match. It's our second of the night to feature an Australian. Of course, we are talking Rhea Ripley teaming up with Iyo Sky. By the way, I accidentally called them Rio a few times earlier on by mashing their names together. But thankfully, Rhea, nearly did it again, came out with Rio on her cheek. So that was cool. There you go. That's her team name. I was just preempted it, of course. Going up against a well-established team, of course, in the Kabuki Warriors, Kairi Sane, and Asuka. Now, this one was fun as well. I mean, it was just a fun show overall. Rhea came out in Aussie gear, as did, I think, Iyo as well, because she had the tassels and that in the colours of the Australian flag. Both of them had the colours, the flags, I should say, of both countries, Japan and Australia, on their boots as well. Iyo's was kind of to the side, more onto a knee, that's a knee pad maybe area. Couldn't quite tell, but then you're on the back on the legs for Rhea Ripley as well. Some vicious blows to Iyo early on. Some backhanders by Asuka and Kairi Sane on Iyo, and then a lovely stomp into the upper chest as well, into the neck, upper chest kind of area, as we're kind of hanging in that trio. Woe gets up and then a stomp back down. That was from Kairi Sane as well. Hard chest kicks again, I think by Asuka on this one. And eventually Iyo snaps and she fights back and gets Rhea in the ring for the tag. She takes control, hits a really hard-looking razor's edge on Kairi Sane. Kairi eventually, though, would be the hero in this match, shoves Asuka out the way valiantly and takes on the loss herself. She gets hit with a Riptide, then the over the moonsault, and a 1, 2, 3. So some fun highlights in this match overall. I was really concerned that they would be tempted to turn Iyo heel and realign with her Kabuki Warrior friends. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, because I think there's so much more they can get out of Iyo being a babyface, and I think that she's red hot at the moment. You want to keep it that way, and I think it was the right decision. You know, having a not hometown, but home country person winning in Rhea, as they did with the heel earlier on. It's nice to see that opportunity with a babyface as well. Madman's hopping out. It's almost 10 p.m. We appreciate you staying up over there in India, Madman. I really do. Thank you so much for joining us on the build-up show earlier on as well. Always appreciate having your comments. Have a good rest. I know you got an exam tomorrow, so good luck in that, buddy. And again, appreciate the comments as ever. Casper's still with us as well. Says Rhea and Iyo says versus the Kabuki Warriors was a fun match, but glad Rhea and Iyo picked up the victory. Yeah, I think it was the right decision here as well for how the feud's gone so far. Again, this is the fun thing about this show, right? It's at such a weird time. I mean, I'm recording this at 10 past 5 on a Saturday, and the PLE's in the books, you know. And for those out in the States, I mean, what is it there? Depending on where you're at, it's morning heading into the afternoon, right? Over in India, as Madman is, it is getting close to the edge of the night and time for bedtime, essentially. So really strange for us to watch a show at this time, but I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and for supporting us here at the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. And it's not just all reviews and hype streams and kind of podcasts on this channel. We also have the opportunity to interview some of your favorite WWE superstars, including the likes of none other than Rhea Ripley. We've had a great conversation with her on this very channel in the past. So if you haven't already, I would appreciate if you went and checked that interview out. Again, it's on this very channel, the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, where you can find our interview with Rhea Ripley. We've also had the opportunity to talk to her former Terror twin in Damian Priest. So if you haven't already, check that one out. Also had good conversations on this channel with the likes of Kevin Owens and members of Imperium, just to name a few. So if you haven't already, subscribe and hopefully find more of our content in the archive for that as well. Casper says this is a crazy time, but early start time on Monday, buzzing for Monday Night Raw. As you mentioned, 1 p.m. start for us here in the UK once again for Monday Night Raw. That one might suffer more. I mean, Friday, you know, maybe some people clocked off early, I don't know, for the weekend. This is on a Saturday, so maybe more people were off anyway. But then Monday, you know, people are going to be at work for the most part, or not even woken up in the United States of America, in some parts of it at least, for many people. And they might be then going to work. You know, it reminds me back in the day when I was in school, when I'd, you know, pay-per-view as it was known was at the time would be on. I'd wake up, try and avoid spoilers at school all day. I mean, social media wasn't really a thing as much then, so or at all when I was in primary school at least. So you try and avoid it all day, and then you get home, and then you have to then, like, you know, taped it or something like that, or watch a replay. Man, I just sound old saying all that, don't I? But my point was that it's going to be a bit like that for them as well. They're going to have to miss a whole show. I mean, that's how it still happens to me today. Sometimes I've got to miss a PLE and I have to get up early and I have to go do something else. And then I'm all day avoiding something until I get home. I did that for CM Punk's return at Survivor Series, by the way. Didn't watch that live and somehow avoided it all day. I had a few suspicions. But yeah, it's tough work trying to avoid spoilers. Anyway, let's get into some more of the action at Crown Jewel. We move on to the main event. As expected, it was the men's Crown Jewel match. WWE champion Cody Rhodes and current Crown Jewel champion going into this match versus world champion Seth Rollins. Now, again, earlier on, they really emphasized that they didn't want the Brons running down there and supporting Seth here. It was Heyman saying, look, it's all down to you, mate. You got to do it. And it felt like it might be a twist. It felt like it was all just to kind of lull Cody into a full sense of security, and then they go, haha, whatever, we're going to do it anyway. Or maybe a brand new member of the Vision was how they go about it. And it wasn't that way. Now, Seth did cheat to win, don't get me wrong, but technically he did it all by his big self. Let's get into the match itself. Before we do that, let's get to Casper's comments here on spoilers. I do try to avoid spoilers, but it is what it is at the end of the day. As you say, it's hard in this world, right, at the moment to avoid spoilers. You jump on social media. Your social media algorithms usually tend to go towards things that you usually look at and click on, right, or things that they think you'll like anyway. You follow certain pages or whatever it may be, so it's flipping hard to stay away from spoilers these days. If you're jumping on your regular kind of, social media look on the way to work or whatever it may be. So, we do well when we stay away, guys. We do well. But getting back to the match itself, Seth Rollins came out looking as glamorous as ever and an interesting pair of glasses on. I don't know if it is this, and I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, but it looks like Seth Rollins was wearing glasses in tribute to Dame Edna. If you're unfamiliar with Dame Edna, a kind of legendary, if you will, character of Australian kind of background, very famous over here in the UK as well in the 90s. I do wonder if that's why Seth was wearing those glasses. They were very similar to Dame Edna's glasses, and just with a Seth Rollins touch, they had little flames on them as well. Of course, it's the burn it down and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I do wonder if that was intentional. Someone like Becky maybe would have grown up being familiar with that as well, and maybe said, or maybe Rhea, Becky being Irish, of course, not saying Becky's Australian, but being from this side of the pond where I would have watched a lot of TV as we did in the UK that featured Dame Edna growing up. So maybe it was that. Anyway, a big deal was made of the watch as well as he took off the watch and he handed it over. And of course, this is the Rolex that Cody Rhodes gave to Seth, as he also gave to The Rock and Roman, I believe, for their tag team match at WrestleMania 40. So it looked like this watch was gonna play a role in the match, and it certainly did towards the end. But let's get into some of the big moments in the match. First of all, going back to attire, he was wearing polka dots again. Not as much as before Seth Rollins, but he had a few of them on his gear to really kind of have mind games for Cody Rhodes again. As we mentioned on the build-up show, a lot of history between these guys here. I'll be honest, guys, main event matches are the ones that I tend to zone out for quite some time until it goes mad at the end. And I did exactly that. And it's nothing against these guys. It's just the main event style for me is not always the most exciting. Nothing happens for a long time. And then you're kind of, okay, now it's time to put my phone down and pay attention. And my note was literally, can't be asked with most of this early stuff, but there we go. Seth started moaning at Wade Barrett, and then the fans kind of started chanting for Wade Barrett, so we did wonder if Wade would get back in the ring, didn't we, about a year or so ago when it looked like him and Drew were butting heads. Maybe this is an opportunity for that as well. I don't think so. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but there we go. Going back to the kind of referencing of the past, Seth really healing it up with mimicking Cody by doing Stardust poses, also starts mimicking Dusty Rhodes with the kind of punches and the roll and all that kind of stuff that Cody himself still does these days. It got stopped by Cody, though, of course, who wouldn't have been happy with that. The usual back and forth between the two of them, and then the stomp only gets a 3 count. We get a mega stomp in the end to finalize things later on. But before we get there, we also get Seth getting tempted by the watch, and he goes and gets it, and then he doesn't do it. Nothing happens with a watch in the end. The Cody Cutter is hit, then a Crossroad is hit, and only a 2 count. And I started to think at this point, I'm not too pleased about them hitting their finishes and getting 2s in every PLE, but all right, we'll see where we go with this one. Then, something we don't see in every PLE that I don't know if I've ever seen before was basically a diving headbutt from coast to coast. Crazy. It's not even a move that Seth usually does, as in a diving headbutt. It wasn't your typical kind of diving headbutt with the hands out, the arms stretched out or anything like that. But it just was, boom, a diving headbutt. Crazy. And it took him a while to kind of get his standing up there. And I was a bit worried for Seth when he first got up there. And I thought, maybe he won't do what he was going to do. Maybe that's why. Maybe he felt more comfortable diving forward instead of a drop kick or something that you traditionally see. But man, it was a very, very fun visual anyway. Talking of fun visuals, not long after that, well, it only gets a 2. Of course it does. You get a Spanish fly and then basically a rock bottom from Seth Rollins as well. Again, only gets a 2. A top road crossroads. only gets a 2. Kind of frustrating, but a big moment in the match anyway. Rollins slips out of a pedigree, then gets the watch, knocks into the ref. The ref goes down. Rollins uses the watch, hits a stomp, hits a super stomp from the top rope, which wasn't as graceful as it maybe could have been, but wasn't the worst either, and picks up the victory. 1, 2, 3. It's a win for Seth Rollins, and he is your 2025 Crown Jewel champion of the men's division. And I think a decision that was correct. A, for Seth Rollins as a character. B, for the division. C, for Cody Rhodes not being rammed down our throat too much. And D, how much are we given here, for the world championship. And on both sides of things, the men's and the women's, the world champion won. And it was the right decision for both of them. Now, you can argue at this point, Seth didn't quite do what he should have done. He still looks like the cowardly heel, but that's kind of in his nature. That's his character in the moment. If he got help from outside interference from the Vision or from a new Vision member, or even from Becky, because she wasn't told strictly by Heyman not to get involved, or Heyman himself, then it would have been, yeah, haha, we fooled you, which I kind of thought they were going to do. This way it was more Seth going, look, I can do it without you. And yeah, you could argue that Heyman would go, well, you still use the watch. And I wanted to see if you really are the best. I'm here to represent the best. But realistically, I don't think that's the case with Heyman. Like, he is, but he also is fully on board with using dirty tactics to get the win for his guys. I guess at the moment, the point is that he's kind of like sick of that, and he wants to see that Seth is worthy of every now and then, because you can't win them all unless you're with someone like, Seth, Heyman and his cronies, in which case they'll kind of help you. But the point is that he needs to win enough before that. And I think that's what Heyman was maybe trying to get across, because like he can't suddenly be against interference. Like, this is a man that ran the Bloodlines interferences for a long, long time. And my goodness, it was every single PLE, it felt like. Let's get to some of these comments here, though. Casper says, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins was a fun match. I did think Seth would win and got that monkey off his shoulder, off his back, as they say. But it won't hurt Cody Rhodes losing this 100%, mate. He wins nearly every other match, right? So Seth needed to win, as you say. Cody Rhodes was 3-0 over Seth, but just really enjoying this match. Did expect a big angle at the end, but did enjoy Seth Rollins and Stephanie Vaquer. It was a great image at the end for both of them, and for Seth even to win. Steph and Seth both won. Seth to do it on his own with a little help from a timepiece, of course. But yeah, really good. I think, again, I'm glad it was both of those guys. Both of the characters, both of the titles that they hold as well, and both of the Crown Jewel Championship as well, to kind of make things look strong next year, as far as like you don't know who's going to win it. It's not always WWE champion. Of course, last year it was Liv who held the world title as well. But last year I kind of felt like Gunther should have won. And he didn't. So again, for him and for that title. So I'm glad to see this year a clean sweep for world champions. And for people, I think they deserve to pick up the victory in this one as well. Like, you want to make Seth look bigger than Cody, because everybody knows how big Cody is. So the whole QB thing, I think, it's going to be there regardless. So you didn't need to drill it in by having him win this one as well. And Seth, finally picks up a victory over Cody Rhodes. First win, apparently, over Cody Rhodes. So that's kind of shocking. Maybe he's beat Stardust. I don't know. But yeah, apparently first win over Cody Rhodes. Weird though seeing the authority figure, who is basically a babyface. Like Triple H is a good guy, generally speaking. He's not on camera as an authority figure. But you'd imagine that, like, could you imagine if the head of FIFA came out and congratulated someone like Maradona after the hand of God, handball, Argentina versus England, and at the time they also had the benefit of the AR, and they were just like, well done. It'd be a bit weird. Do you know what I mean? So you could also go into, well, they don't use VAR, they don't reverse decisions, but still, they've done that in the past, haven't they? It depends where the story, where they want it to go. Triple H also is probably someone that, you know what, by any means necessary. Triple H learned from the dirtiest player in the game, Ric Flair, and was a pretty dirty player in himself. So, maybe it'd be hypocritical for Triple H to kind of kick up a fuss here. But it was a bit odd, to be honest, to see, because they always have, here you go, you're the Crown Jewel champ. I say always, 2 years in a row now, and 4 people he's done it with. So I guess he had to do it, but you'd imagine he might be indifferent if it was a heel or dirty tactics, and he weren't really like that. So yeah, there we go. Seth Rollins picked up the win, and as mentioned by Casper, both of them pose in the ring, the two, Stephanie Vaquer and Seth Rollins. But again, man, a really, really fun show, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I've enjoyed all the content surrounding it. Yesterday covering SmackDown in depth, and also our weekend kickoff show where Lucas was on the stream as well. Also our build-up show earlier on. Again, if you're new here, what we like to do is get you hyped up and in the mood for the PLA, taking you right up to the start of it itself with last-minute rumors and predictions. Thank you to everyone that joined us on that. And again, for those that came back here for the instant reaction review, it's been a lot of fun covering Crown Jewel in depth this weekend. Tomorrow, of course, is Monday Night Raw. Going to see if we can hit you with some extra content there as well. Can't promise it, but stay tuned because you never know. I might be feeling generous or able to do so, essentially. So we'll see if we can squeeze that into the schedule as well. But either way, I want to say thank you very much to everyone that joined us on this weekend. As Casper says, it's international break now, so no good football this week. Looking forward to football returning next week, as we touched on some FIFA just a moment ago. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the club game back again. But then again, England, it'll be interesting to see how they play against Serbia in a few days' time. Again, we do have a football channel, guys, the Rebellious Noise football channel, if you want to hear us talking football as well. Oh, Kevin's right. Tomorrow, good point. It is Sunday. It's not Monday Night Raw tomorrow, is it? Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for pointing it out. If I did do a stream, I'd be a day early, wouldn't I? 2 days from now, Monday afternoon Raw, I'm going to call it, because it's going to start 1 p.m. for us here. But yeah, thank you for pointing it out, Kevin. You have just saved me from having lost a day of my weekend, so I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for all your great comments as well. Really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for your great insight for what you thought was going to happen at Crown Jewel and your thoughts on what did happen at Crown Jewel. It's been a fun one, guys. And again, we'll try and catch you for some Monday Night Raw content as well. So make sure you subscribe to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel to see if that does come your way and land in your inbox as an upcoming live stream as well. If not, we'll try and come back as soon as we can to give you some more wrestling content as well. As I said, in the archive, plenty of great content to dive into. Interviews with some of your favorite WWE superstars such as Big E, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest, to name a few. We've also had great chats with the likes of Bianca Belair and Liv Morgan as well. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, check out our interviews on this very channel. But I've been Scott. This has been the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. This has been our Crown Jewel coverage, and I'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.